you start changing, you'll see people will start being a little funny with you sometimes. They're like, what is it? What is this? What are you going to the gym at 6 a.m.? You're meditating? Like what are you doing? Like what is this funny stuff you're doing? Go through with it anyway. And you're gonna see those same people are gonna look at you and go, yo man, I'm proud of you. Or not. So don't be afraid to start your journey, your healing journey. Don't beat yourself up. We all got a little trauma that we're healing from. Be accountable and practice self-empathy.
Mike, welcome to Empathy Led. How you doing, brother?
I'm fantastic, man. I'm fantastic. At my home, in the woods, enjoying the fresh air. But thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be a part of this.
No, thank you for making the time, and thank you to saying yes to my invitation. I was actually going to ask you. I'm quite intrigued now by the background. Like, are you a recluse? What's going on?
Hey man, after you spend 40 years in New York City, I mean, I always dreamed about living in nature. I love nature, and I was looking to relocate during the pandemic. And I said, man, I want to change the pace because I knew I'll be working a lot too. And found this house, and it was just like 360 covered by trees. And I was like, this is perfect. I still get to be sort of that a little bit antisocial New Yorker, but I get to like enjoy nature as well. So down here in Georgia and love it.
Yeah. So I think this is actually a good place for us to start. Help us understand how different your life is going from the hustle and the bustle and the noise of New York City and this place of being surrounded by nature and trees and the birds. What are some of the changes within yourself and within your life that you've experienced and you've witnessed?
A lot, man. A lot. It's so funny. I just did an event yesterday, and this topic came up of how we deal with so much as New Yorkers. New York. I'm born and raised. I was born in Queens, New York, South Jamaica, Queens to be exact. And somebody said this is like you're always next to somebody. You get on a train, you're this close to somebody. You get on a bus, you're this close to somebody, and you never have room or space just to like let it all out and be free and connect with nature and get grounded. And so much has changed for me. And the thing the most is sort of the noise pollution, because you're so everything else except your own voice. And here I get to wake up in the morning with my coffee. I get to start my day at my pace. And it has really helped, I think, heal and repair me, from the pandemic. I lost people, like I'm sure a lot of people out there lost people. And psychologically, I just think it took a toll on me. So I was ready for a change of pace. And I love it. I'll the element of nature, wherever I live or wherever I choose to buy a home.
Yeah. How have you seen this new pace in your life and your mornings and your ritual? How have you seen it find expression in the way you interact with other human beings now and the way you approach your work and the way you show up in society?
Man, I got to tell you, a few years ago, I'm not a part of this anymore. A few years ago, me and some former business partners, we started a nonprofit to help take inner city kids camping and bring them in nature. And that was really the start of me falling in love with nature and understanding like, wow, this really feels like you get the reset button every day. I have labor intensive days based off what I do for a living, which we'll get into that. And the difference, just to answer your question, that I've noticed is that I'm allowed to reset. I don't have to hear sirens all the time. I don't have to hear my neighbors complaining and fighting. I don't have to smell people's food and what they're cooking. And let's start with some good old Southern barbecue. But it allows me to actually be more productive because I get to reset again. And
Yeah.
there was this old slogan the Army used to have. You used to say, "We do more by 9 a.m. than most people do in a lifetime," or something like that.
Mm.
I literally do more from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. than most people. I wake up with gratitude, which is an important piece of who I am. Is waking up with gratitude every day. I do not take one day for granted.
Yeah.
Connecting to nature also allows me to just sort of amplify that gratitude, if you
Yeah.
will. So I hope that answered your question.
No, it does. It does. So, what are some of the things you are most grateful for these days?
Man, I got to be honest with you. My relationships,
Mm.
like even just talking to you, watching you, and I didn't know you. I think I probably followed you, and I was like, man, this is a really positive brother. I get a lot of great energy from you, and to answer your question, the thing that I'm most grateful for are my relationships.
Yeah.
I think people take for granted the fact that we need each other. We
Oh.
need each other. I
Oh.
don't care how many memes or how cruel society may seem on social media. We 1000% need each other. I think relationships are everything. And I just want to share this little story of something that just happened to me, right? So I was in my truck and I was getting out of my truck and I just finished scrolling mindlessly on Instagram. I saw this altercation and it was like these people were beefing and this person was mad and person was mad. And it weird. And then I got out of my truck and I had this in my mindset. I was like, man, people just can't get along. I see this woman. She was with her kid, and I see this old couple, and they were both getting out the car at the same time. And the old guy said, "You could have took that parking spot. We could have got one. It's okay." She was like, "No, sweetheart, no, you did." And they was racing each other. And I was sitting there. I was like, "Man, there's still really amazing people left in this world." And they were completely different races, completely different ages. They were just laughing and giggling. I said to myself, I'm like, yeah, we really need this energy. And when you can when you can, sit back and like for my case, and look, I've spent 20 years building relationships, 20
Mm.
years building relationships. And I'm going to tell you why it's so important. I took 4 years off from consulting. When I came back after 4 years, those relationships were still there.
Mm.
And it allowed me to just do the work that I'm doing now. So that is what I'm most grateful for. I don't take that for granted as well. So I'm very grateful.
No, absolutely. I mean, for me, talking about things that we take for granted, one of the things these days that not these days, but since migrating to the US, that I really, really understand the meaning and the power of is relationships, right? With my family
Mhm.
and my childhood friends. And some of those relationships are so powerful, in fact, that it's been 16, 17 years since I've been in the US, and we are separated by time and oceans and miles of land. And some of those are so powerful that they have endured all of that. That when I go home
Mhm.
and I meet a childhood friend that I haven't spoken to in years, we just can take it right back where we started.
Yep.
And there are many
Yep.
times when I talk to my family at home and I can see in them that taking each other for granted because they are there together
Mhm.
all the time. And
Right.
the
Right.
things that are more present to them is the low bickering and the low disagreement. But from my vantage
Mhm.
point, I am just so grateful that both my parents are still alive and my sisters and
Yeah.
they're having kids. And because I'm so far from them for so long at a time, I just appreciate them so much more than I'm sure I would have if I was with them on a daily basis. And I too will probably focus on all the ways that drive me crazy.
Yeah, because that's gonna happen at
Of
some point. But
course.
you hit the nail on the head.
Of
You
course.
pick it up right where you left off.
Yeah. So you already touched on COVID and how it was a critical juncture in your life. I wanted to take a step even further back. What are some of those other important pieces of your life puzzle that will give us the context to understand you and the path that led you here?
Wow, that's probably one of the most interesting questions anybody has ever asked me.
Thank you.
I grew up pretty hard. If you know me, I grew up because of my age, I grew up in the crack era in New York City. So it didn't allow me to have a childhood. I didn't have a childhood. I have probably about 3 or 4 memories that were positive from my childhood. I grew up in a home with a lot of turbulence. Um, I had to leave my house to, dodging crackheads, 7 a.m. in the morning, get to school, all the kids are dealing with the issues they're dealing with in their home. So they bring it to school, family bickering, dealing with, working class poverty, right? Because there's different levels of poverty, right? And just really, I remember never feeling safe. One of the things that I remember, and I have a photo of this, is when I was in kindergarten. I was actually so stressed out that the morning before my class pictures, I pulled all my hair out because I was so stressed out. And all I just saw was grown-ups being violent and ignorant, and just never felt safe. So I went inward and created my own world. And a lot of that was, I owe that to creativity. Fast forward, I became a young father around 23, 24, I think 24. And that was really difficult, but it was also the fire that I needed to do something beyond just what everybody in my community was doing. I never really had a male figure in my life that was like, yo, man, you can do it. You can be this, you can be that. I never had anybody tell me I could do that. I always knew deep in my soul that I was destined to do great things in life, despite all the negative voices around me. So, I'm 24 years old. I'm having a kid. I have no support whatsoever. I'm just trying to figure life out. I remember the picking up a Source magazine and reading about people who were doing all these phenomenal things in hip hop. And I said, yo, man, I got to do something. I've always wanted to make movies and films. I bought my first big camera, my Tech. It was like $2,500. And I literally immersed myself into the scene. I used to just go to meet people. I used to read about them in magazines and find where they are and just go to the place and say, hey, I'm a videographer. Hire me. I worked for free. I bust my butt. And I built my network that way. The number one thing I always wanted to be was reliable. I wasn't the most talented videographer, but this was on the wave and think of online video being one of the main forms of communication now to receive media. So fast forward, long story short, is I began filming celebrities, talented people, creatives, and I had my own online platform back early 2000s. And I just became, me and my partners, everybody knew us. I was shooting everybody from Lady Gaga to Jennifer Lopez to Kid Cudi to Janelle. I was one of the first people actually to film Janelle Monáe when she came to New York City. Calvin Harris when he came to New York City. All these videos are online right now. You can just go watch them. They've been up for years. But I did all this with the understanding that it would take me some time to be successful. I didn't have great examples. From that, being in the media space, I got a chance to intern for Diddy, Sean Combs, however you want to call him. And that was that was my college, y'all. That was my college.
Wow.
That man, I've never seen a human being work that hard before. I've never seen anybody stay up for almost, like, it was just insane. And I was working in a 9 to 5. I was working from 8 to 4, and I would go to Bad Boy Records or Worldwide from 4:30, sometimes 3 in the morning. I did that for a year and a half, wound up losing my job. And I was just like, okay, now I'm an entrepreneur now. And, but I didn't know, and to land it here, I didn't know that whole time that I was also really great at marketing. And a friend of mine at the time was like, yo, you are a great marketer and connector. You should get into this. I read a bunch of books. And then in 2008, I decided that I would start my own agency, start consulting for people. Um, I was in the forefront of popularizing mobile fundraising. I helped launch a startup that now has raised $100 million for various startups, various nonprofits, actually nonprofits, all across the country. And from there, just went on to represent over 100 different companies and brands from 2008 until now. Took a 4-year hiatus, but now I have relaunched my own agency, which is called the Rebel Camp. The Rebel Camp is really all about fostering a new style of representation for CEOs and founders. All my clients are pretty much CEOs and founders. I focus on cultural-based marketing, building community, and just really empowering businesses. I like to work with small to medium-sized businesses, and I entrench myself from all sides. So when I do represent a client, I usually take on a role in the company. And it allows me to be entrenched from all sides, because to represent some of these CEOs, and you have to be kind of crazy. So that's why I call it rebel. You have to be a rebel. So that's pretty much the story. I know that was a little long-winded.
No, I love that, man. This is by far, and I didn't know this before I started the podcast, that this will be my favorite part of the entire show. And I've seen people criticize podcast hosts for spending too much time on people's background and childhood, and they're like, I didn't come here for that. But I don't care, man, because for me, it gives you just so much context into the person, into what drives them, into how they arrived at this place in their life. And I know from my own experience how my formative years play a role in how I see the world and the choices that I make today. So I'm always interested in learning the same about other people. So obviously so much to unpack. One of the things that I wanted to start unpacking was for people who, like you, had a tough childhood, those who survive it, because not everybody survive it, unfortunately, but those who survive it find out that they have acquired superpowers because of what they've gone through, not in spite of it, but because of what they've gone through. What are some of those superpowers that you feel you've acquired having survived the kind of childhood that you had?
Man, I got to tell you, it's like this unlimited cache of creative ideas, right? Because I was trying to escape. You know, a lot of people will tell you some of the most successful CEOs are sometimes driven by their trauma, which I don't recommend. And we can get into the mental health stuff later. Empathy is my biggest superpower.
Ooh.
Understanding other people's feelings and emotions. You cannot be a successful consultant if you don't understand where this CEO is at or this founder is at. And I just got a new client last week. I didn't even expect, because I'm like, dude, tell me what's going on, you know? And he told me, and I said, well, this is how I can help. So empathy, creativity, empathy, and I have a dogged perseverance. I am like Steven Seagal, hard to kill. Like, I just keep coming back. And that can frustrate people sometimes, because they're like, where are you pulling it from? And I'm transmuting all of the negative stuff that happened into my life. Transmutation is a very important thing to me. Like, I woke up angry this morning. I'm Junior. I'm not going to lie. I woke up really angry this morning. Sometimes that happens. I went to the gym. I meditated. I did what I had to do, but that was my form of transmuting that negative energy. Sorry, guys, I'm in the woods. That negative energy. And so I would say creativity. I would say empathy. I would say a dogged perseverance. The ability to transmute negative vibes into positive vibes. But none of that is going to come out unless you get therapy, man, or you heal. You have to, or that's going to turn in. You're going to be one of these megalomaniac, crazy, like, I don't mean to use the term crazy, but loose cannon CEOs or business people who do it for just money or do it just to get back at people. You're going to crash and burn. If
Yeah.
that is your main thing, it's just, I got to make money because that defines me. Or I got to get back at these people because they didn't believe in me. I was there before.
Yeah.
That's not where you want to be. You're doing it for the wrong reasons. And my friend Bless says this, and the land here, she says this. She says, the universe is like a restaurant. You put in your order, and whatever you ordered, you get back.
Mm-hmm.
You get back. So if you're putting this energy out there, you're gonna get that energy right back.
Wow.
And nowadays, that is an instant thing, right? When people do something, it's like, man, you see the karma is instant now. So I put out energy that would only want to receive back. I hope that answered your question.
No, it does, man. I think about this all the time. I think about just how powerful hardship can be to give us these superpowers. And the trick or the challenge with it is that, like, no one will intentionally manufacture hardship just to acquire those, right? And it's almost like, could I somehow manufacture hardship so that I can develop this, dogged resiliency, this empathy, the answer is no one would choose to do that. But
Yeah.
but once you go through something like that, you just realize just how powerful the human beings are, man, and how powerful our minds can be, and how tough and resilient we can be, and how you just learn so much about yourself, and start to see so much in you, so much of you in other people, which then allows you to empathize with them.
Yeah. You don't need that hardship. The only thing you need is, I would not recommend 0 stars. Would not recommend. All you need to do is find your purpose. Find your purpose. The question you start with, and my boy Javon Sharp always said this: what is your why? What is your why? Your purpose can literally be just to elevate your family. You don't need to go to prison or be abused or da-da-da-da-da. No, those are those things take a lifetime sometimes to heal from. You don't want that. Like you said, you don't want that smoke. Purpose is, and you need, and what I'm going to tell, because I feel like I'm talking to somebody right now, is how people go, oh, how do I, my friend? Yes, ask yourself, what is your why? But you are sometimes going to have to go through a spiritual journey and transformation in order to find your purpose. Like, I know that you used to play football, right? And now you've transitioned it. You never know what your purpose is going to be, and you're making people's lives better yet again. You did it with football. Now you're doing it with business and this podcast. But you went through your journey, all the sweat and the practice and this is your journey.
Absolutely.
And you have to trust the journey, because once you start distrusting your journey, you're like, because you're timing it to other people's perceived successes. I'll be honest with you, Jerry, I don't care what anybody else is doing. I really don't. I do, but I don't. I hope that makes sense. When my friends hit milestone, yes, congratulations. But I don't look at other people's possessions or statuses and go, oh man, let me give up on my own journey. No, this is my unique journey. Yeah.
No, I love that so much, and I can relate to that so much. I think we live in a world where we are exposed to people highlight reel, and it's becoming increasingly difficult for people to run their own race, for people to trust their own vision, for people to believe in their own journey. And I think it's such an important conversation for us to have, for people to understand that we are all human beings going through the same stuff. It finds different expression, but no one's life is perfect, even if on Instagram it seems to be. And as long as we compare ourselves, and this is something that I have to remind myself, because I find myself slipping back into those bad habits. But whenever I compare myself to other people, I have now relinquished my own vision and I have put on them the power to dictate what the metrics for
Yes.
success are, right? Like,
Hmm.
how do you know you are
Hmm.
behind if you're not running the same race? Like, in order for us to be for you to be behind in a race, you have to be running the same race. If you are not running the same race, you cannot be behind.
Man, that's a quote, my
You
brother.
know.
I
So,
appreciate what you just said. I'm gonna have to borrow that one.
of course, of course. So I want to hear a little bit more about. It's clear that you've done some work to heal from your traumas. You already talked about picking up meditation. You talked about finding solace inward. You talked about meditation. Like, I want, and I feel like this is an important process, an important part of this conversation for people out there that are still dealing with heavy trauma, can't seem to find a way out. And at times it feels like the people that are recommending and giving those advice have not gone through that themselves. And therefore
Yeah.
they don't have sometimes the credibility or the empathy required to really be able to give advice to someone from a place of experience. And you clearly have the experience of someone who's had some terrible trauma and a really difficult childhood
Mhm.
and has figured a way to make it to the other side. So what advice do you have? What are some of those practical steps you've taken in order for you to be here today?
Man, it took years to even understand what mental health was because that information wasn't available. Nobody was talking about mental health when I was a teenager. Nobody was talking about mental health even in my early 20s. This is a very recent popular conversation in the last probably 10 years. So I think we have to give ourselves a little bit of empathy. Like the
Mm,
information wasn't available to us as readily as it is now. The steps that I took were first, I had to ask myself, what kind of man do I want to be? What do I want my legacy to be? I
mm,
knew I had issues with certain things, right? That prevented me from taking it to the next level. My healing journey was not easy. And everybody thinks healing, they think about like sage and meditating and all that stuff. And sometimes people don't understand. You could be opening up wounds that you are not ready to treat.
mm,
So sometimes professional help is required. Sometimes community is required. Look, here's the thing: we keep saying to people, go to therapy, especially people of color. It's not always easy because you don't get somebody who can understand where you're coming from, right? And you want somebody that can identify with you. What I will say to you is this: starting that journey, find community, and not just community where there's somebody at the tail end of it that's just trying to make money. Find communities online or in person that will support you and support your journey and empathize with your situation, but also hold you accountable. There are
mm,
so many groups out there now. I mean, thousands that you can join that are free resources. One of my clients, Love and Kindness Wellness Services, has such workshops. They have a free workshops that they do that talk about anxiety, depression, care for elders, caretakers, and it's lk-wellness.com, and it's a really great resource. It's a woman and minority led company, and that's just like one of the companies, but there's a ton out there. Now, if you have insurance and you can get therapy, please do it. Do that because it'll give you like this unbiased sort of take on what's happening with you. Because people that know you sometimes they're so familiar with you that they're probably going to give you advice that isn't rooted in processes that allow you to gradually get better. It's gonna just be like, "Yo, man, yo, look, come on, man, let's go have a drink," right? That's probably the
right.
last thing you need to do, right? Is forget and fall into escapism. So the healing, in my opinion, starts with one, you got to be accountable for it. It's a responsibility, just like you would be accountable for your belongings. You have to be accountable for your own mental health. Next, find your community, find your community. And from then, it's really, understanding. I think a lot of people also don't understand the true power in really taking on empathy as a superpower,
Yeah.
right? Because you have to have self empathy for yourself. So those are the things that I would say really helped me. But I really held myself accountable through my healing process. I had a lot of people that would laugh at me and say, "Oh, da, 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 da." No, man, I took that as a sign. I was like, I know I'm getting better, that I'm being this, I'm being that. I don't even pay attention to that. I know that I'm changing, and when you start changing, you'll see people will start being a little funny with you sometimes. They're like, "What is he? What is this? What are you going to the gym at 6 a.m.? You're meditating? Like what are you doing? Like what is
Yeah.
this funny stuff you're doing?" Go through with it anyway, and you're gonna see those same people are gonna look at you and go, "Yo, man, I'm proud of you," or not. So don't be afraid to start your journey, your healing journey. Don't beat yourself up. We all got little trauma that we're healing from. Be accountable and practice self empathy.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. I am so glad this is now a conversation. You hear
Me too.
people now being very candid about their own journey.
Yeah.
Like, you have celebrities that are now
Right.
popularizing this. So it's so important. So I want to shift gear and talk a little bit about marketing. And before I get into the rebel camp, for me, and these people don't get enough credit. For me, people like Diddy and Missy Elliott and all those artists are master at branding and marketing, man. And like they are the masters. You're not gonna necessarily find them in the books. Maybe people like Diddy finally get some recognition for the work that
Mhm.
they do and the Jay-Z's of this world. But all those artists, man, they understand intuitively what branding and marketing is.
Yeah.
So having been immersed in that
Yeah.
world early on, what are some of those lessons that you've picked up from people like Diddy and Missy and all of those artists that you were surrounded with that you carry with you now in your journey as a marketer?
Absolutely. I think marketing is essential. It's to me, it's a vehicle. It could be multiple vehicles, right? And branding, right, is something else that I learned a great deal from during my internship with Diddy. The thing that I've learned from being around a lot of high profile, very successful people was consistency in messaging.
Mm.
Consistency. Even on days when you post something and when you may get one like, I want to tell you right now, somebody is watching. Somebody is watching. Now, if you get 30 likes on a post, think about this. Imagine 30 people standing here right now.
Mm-hmm.
30 people. Imagine one of those people can do something for you versus 20,000 people, liking it and nobody, even offers to buy your product or invest in whatever you're doing. I realized the power of consistency in my messaging. Every brand that I've started, I said, look, I'm going to hit y'all over the head every day until y'all get it. And in different ways, I'm going to use all these tools, free tools that are at my fingertips to make sure I market and brand either the product I'm pushing or myself. And my boy, Aaron Arnold, used to say this. He used to say, those who doubt will eventually be forced to believe. Because when you are consistent, baby, whew, it separates you miles ahead of people because most people are going to give up.
Wow.
There's statistics. Even people start businesses, give up. Sometimes people give up 3 weeks in. I don't give up because I saw people that were now billionaires not give up. Even when things weren't working, they may have shift and you change things around, but you never give up. You may even switch careers, but it's the same energy, man. It's just like maybe selling something new, but you did not give up, right? Sometimes you just have to adjust. But when I feel like God gives you a gift and he gives you a calling and he introduces you to your purpose, it is your duty, your moral duty to see that through, to see it through. So I think consistency in messaging for me was the biggest thing. And I remember starting even the ginger beer brand that me and my partners have. It's called Uncle Waithley's Beverage Company. And we're now in 56 Whole Foods,
Oh,
etc.
wow.
We started, yeah, we started off with like 80 followers, 100 followers, and we've stayed consistent. The funny thing is we don't have 20, 30,000 followers on Instagram. We have about 11, 1200. But guess what? The right people support us. And we're in 56 Whole Foods in the Northeast. We're about to expand to 22 stores in the Midwest, to Market District, which is another supermarket chain. We're on Amazon. We're on Boisson. You know, we're on all these places, 40, 50 restaurants and bars. And it's because we were consistent every single day.
Yeah.
Consistent. You know, talking to people, posting, or interacting with our partners. So I challenge you to be consistent, you know, if you're struggling with that, no matter what. Somebody's watching and they want to support you.
Oh, that's real, man. That's real. For me, there's so many things that you said in that. One of those is this idea of we have trivialized what 30 people is, right? Like 30 people. Kidding me?
Right. Right.
Like,
Like if 30 people show up to your house right now,
know
right?
what
You're
I
like, oh my
mean?
God, I don't have enough food.
And I cannot even sit here and pretend that it doesn't get to me as well. You know, like it gets to me as well, but I have to remind myself to say, my man, 50 people in this sea of content exist, have found you and have taken the time to like, to comment, to share. It's incredible.
Mhm.
And the other thing I try to remind myself is what a privilege and what an opportunity it is to impact one life. One life. For someone to say,
Man,
I was inspired by you, one human being,
yes.
because of what you said,
Yes.
because of what you did, I
Yeah.
took my life in a different direction. That is an incredible contribution to mankind. And I think at times, because we are playing the thousands and the millions of followers game, we forget the power of one.
Yeah. That's so true, man.
Of one. And repetition, man. Repetition. You see Didi, he's been doing it for years. DJ Khaled almost sounds ignorant with how much he repeats himself and how consistent he is with the stuff.
Yeah.
But guess what? Whenever he drops something, whenever
he's
he's onto something, you know about it and you know exactly what that thing is because of that level of consistency and repetition. And I think that is the part of
we the best.
Yeah, right. That is the part about marketing and branding that is so underestimated. So and undervalued. So I'm so glad that you brought that up, right? We get so bored of our own message, right? One of my favorite marketers of all time, which is what's his name again? David Ogilvy, talks about you are not talking to a standing crowd, you are talking to a marching band. So repeat yourself, because the people that heard it yesterday are not the same people that are there. It's a moving crowd. It's a moving parade. So you have to repeat yourself. And you know, my former boss used to say, we might have gotten into somebody's mind once we start getting bored of our own message. Until we are sick of it, no one has heard it yet. It doesn't matter how many times we've said it.
Exactly.
All right. So
exactly.
You've already touched a little bit about what the rebel camp does and all of that. One of the things, couple of things that from afar really, really fascinate me that I want you to touch on. You already touched on where the name comes from, but I want you to expand on that a little bit. But I'm especially interested in understanding from you what culture-led marketing is.
Yes. For me, it's the equalizer. It is that's my secret sauce. because we all have a culture, right? You have a culture, I have a culture. We may share same cultures, like we like the same music, right? Or but we may eat different foods, right? Or live different. Culture, when I say culture led marketing, it really for me is an equalizer because most of these companies don't understand culture. And my boy Jay, I always quote my boy Jay Von Sharp. He's like my oracle, one of my business partners. He always says culture is data. That's
Mm.
his. That's He has his own agency, Uber Life. I've learned a lot from him and his business partners, but he says culture is data. To me, it's information into who people are, how people live, what they buy, what they love, what they hate, and corporate America is not always interested in really, really getting to understand culture.
Yeah.
They're not. They follow trends, and there's a difference. I think when you understand culture, first of all, to understand culture, you need to understand empathy,
And that's why I'm
right?
so
Because
attracted by that
you need to
idea. Yeah.
understand. Yeah, because you need to understand where people are coming from without your biases, right? Like, um, for me, it's I've had the opportunity in my life to travel. I've had the opportunity to have friends from different backgrounds, from Venezuela to Europe to wherever it is, and I just studied, and I started to get a deep understanding that culture is the thing that brings us together, but it also is the thing that makes us vastly different.
Mhm.
But if you can appreciate people's culture, you can appreciate who they are as a human being. And now, because they feel that appreciation, they feel seen and they feel heard. So now it's like, hey guys, interested in a new phone, right? In the colors of the flag that represents your country, maybe, or something that makes you feel empowered. Because when people see and appreciate your culture, it makes them feel empowered.
Mhm.
Because we have so many systems in place that make you believe that like these major corporations are culture. They're not. It may be something that is a part of your culture that you go to and support, but that is a product or service. Culture is a part of your DNA. We pass it down through our lineage. So what I said is because I'm the small guy in the situation most of the time that's coming into these big multi-million dollar situations, I have a leg up. I have these companies reach out to me. I've been paid before just to sit in a room and tell people how to target sneakerheads, right? Like this is real. And it's because I study culture.
Ah.
I'm not on social media just because I'm trying to show off my socks or something. I'm on there studying what people do. When I'm a piano became very popular, which is like, South African sound and vibration
Mhm.
form of house music. I was on that so quick. I was on that so fast, studying it like, wow, this is going to be huge 2 years ago. And it was around for like 10 years already. I'm probably wrong. I'm not accurate on that. But how am I just figuring this out? And now when I'm in conversations online and people are like, oh, we should book a DJ that plays, I'm like, oh, let's book this type of DJ. See, that helps me insert myself into situations and it brings up certain value because the people that are cutting the checks most of the time they don't have the time to study culture and be culturally sensitive to things.
Yeah.
They just need to get the things done, and the bottom line is sales. I'm there to make sure that people are respected, their culture is respected. Even like it's nuanced things, it's small things that may seem small to you, but can be an insult to people. So that is when I say culture led marketing. I always lead with that lens, and then my second is community. So I hope that answered the question.
No, no, it does. For me, you see a word and you feel like you have a sense for what it is, and I'm so glad you clarified it. But I cannot think
Yeah.
about building a brand without, because for me, a brand is a worldview. A brand is a worldview. Is a worldview that those who are building the brand are inviting you into, right? And at times, it's a worldview that represent, or uphold, or communicate something within a specific culture, And so this idea of
Mhm.
culture-led marketing just resonates with me so powerfully. And when big corporations and big brands try to hijack these cultures without really understanding
Yeah.
really understanding the ideas that drives and connect the people within that culture, at times, and most of the time, they are found out. Because to your point, it's something that is fundamental to who we are. It's a part of our DNA. And we don't even need to have words to be able to know that like this is not it. We just know it. We feel it. We're like,
Yeah.
this is somebody who doesn't
Yeah.
belong. This is somebody who's trying to hijack this thing because it might be popular, because it's reached a kind of cultural tipping point, a wave that everybody's trying to ride.
Yeah.
But the people that belong to that subgroup, to that culture, they know there's a
Yes.
certain way
Yes.
of being, there's a certain
Yes.
way of communicating, there is a certain way of just being, that an aura, the
Mhm.
spirit of this thing, the zeitgeist of this thing is often something that unless you are a
Mhm.
part of that culture, you cannot get, right?
Yeah.
And I think the
Yeah.
power
And
in,
I like that you use the word spirit.
yeah,
Spirit is important.
it's a spiritual thing. It's a spiritual thing. Is and
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
really, that's why people like you are so powerful, because the regular people within the culture often do not have the skills to put into word or to communicate that thing, because it's so intangible,
Yeah.
it's spiritual. So we need people like
Yes.
you that are, scribed, that are
Yeah.
able to put into words this thing that the rest of us just feel at a deep intuitive level. And we can only tell you when somebody has nailed it, and we can tell you when somebody has not,
I
right?
appreciate that, man. Thank you,
Yeah, of
sir. Thank
course,
you.
of course. So what is the process then? You said earlier that one of the things that you always want to do is fully immerse yourself within a company, and I really love that idea of taking a role within the company. Can you tell me more about that? Because that's I've never heard any consultant do that, and intuitively it makes so much sense
Yeah.
for you to truly be immersed in that company, to take a role within that. I want to hear more about that piece.
I learned that from a gentleman named Kenny. What's his name? Kenny McAllister, something like that. These guys were like, it was a company called Alloy Marketing and Promotion. To
Mm,
me, they are the godfathers of like urban culture marketing, and they don't get enough respect. I have like this idea to do this documentary about the early, cultural urban marketers. But he said, when he represents clients, he likes to fully immerse himself in the company, because you don't want when you're selling somebody something or you're trying to get buy-in, you don't want people to see you, in my opinion, as like a third arm or a fourth arm. Like, we are one fist moving together.
mhm.
And though it's hard for me because on LinkedIn I can't always update all the titles that I have in all the companies, because it looks crazy. But I really um, like to be fully immersed in everything that's happening, because I have to feel the heartbeat of the
Mhm.
company. I have to feel the heartbeat. I'm not one of these agencies that actually want to have 50 clients. I don't. I really don't. And luckily, I don't have to do that because I have ownership in other companies. Um, but I don't want it to ever feel, if I'm talking to you, like I'm just some guy that's getting hired to do a job. I want you to feel like whenever I'm working with a client and I'm trying to get buy-in for a program or a service or a product, I want to bring whoever I'm trying to sell to into our culture. I want you to feel like you're a part of a family now of passionate people, no matter what we're doing. And I think people can read that now. You know how many messages I get on LinkedIn every day, somebody trying to sell me something,
Oh my
and I
God.
can just tell it's too salesy. It's not personal enough. It's not. I don't feel you. There's no, like you said, spirit in it, and that's why that's important to me. I'm not trying to. to be honest with you, I barely push, to end it here, I barely push my agency. I don't really market my agency a lot. I really don't. Um, One, I don't really need to. I pick and choose who I want to represent. That's sort of my thing. I'm lucky enough to do that. It took me 20 years to do that.
Of course.
So hope that answered the question once again.
No, it does. It does. For me, there is something about having empathy in marketing that, the reason this show exists is because I just realized that every time something is wrong with somebody's marketing, with somebody's campaign, with somebody's leadership, the answer can almost always be empathy. Like you lack the empathy to understand who you are selling to. You lack the empathy to understand who is working for you. You lack the empathy to understand the messages that resonate with people. And on and on and on. And for me, that just became the through line that just stitches together everything that I do. And I just realized once I started the company that yes, it's something that is so important in marketing and branding, but really this idea is such a bigger idea. And that's why I freed the podcast to be a podcast, yes, where we can talk about business and marketing, but it's really to talk about people and to understand people and to share different stories from different backgrounds and different, because that's also how we become better people. That's how we build better brands. And ultimately, that's how we create better societies and a better world for everyone. So the idea of empathy and this idea of, is such a powerful idea. We are, unfortunately,
your relationship building too.
Absolutely. Mike, this has been a tremendous conversation. I am so glad we finally got the opportunity to do this, man. I love it when
yes, sir.
A random follow turns into something like this. And I cannot wait to see what the next phase of this relationship is.
1000%. I just want to thank you for having me, allowing me to tell my story. I don't do many of these, believe it or not. But it just feels good to be in a company of other positive people, right? I'm very careful about how I curate my circle. I'm very I'm a big vibes person, and I just knew when I was man, I really like this guy's energy. So to be able, it's an honor to be a part of this podcast, and like you said, looking forward to where this relationship goes.
Thank you so much, man. It really, really means a lot. Thank you for all that you are doing. Thank you for the conversations you are having. Thank you for the platform that you are creating. You're making a tremendous contribution to this world. So I want to thank you on behalf of our fellow human beings.